Welcome to Taste Buds. I'm Debra Eckerling, goal strategist, writer, and foodie. And today I'm speaking with Yuliya Patsay, the storyteller and author of Until the Last Pickle, a memoir in 18 recipes. Welcome, Yuliya. Great to have you here. And I'm sure you've heard this before. I absolutely love the title of your book.
Thank you so much. I so appreciate that. I have a great story of how that came to be.
Well, I cannot think of a better time than now for you to share that.
Wonderful. So, this book, Until the Last Pickle, just started out as like a project to collect my family recipes. I thought I was going to make like a little, book for everyone to give out at the holidays. That was the idea behind it. And then when the pandemic hit, the focus really changed for me into asking a deeper question of why do we celebrate the way that we do? And what are some of those stories and recipes that would be wonderful to preserve for the next generation? So I started interviewing my family members, and a section in my book is called Procurement for the Proletariat, which is all about how we acquired food in the Soviet Union, which was, tricky. And as we were going through this, my dad was helping me with a glossary of terms about the pantry and how there's this like untouchable supply in your pantry that you need to have at all times. But he was saying, but you know how we say, if the party's really going, the последнего огурца, which is until the last pickle. And I was like, wait, what? I don't know that. And that became the title because I thought it was so great. It was really about the ethos of hospitality and keeping that party going. And that's what Until the Last Pickle means. If the party's really going, you just cut up the last thing in your pantry to contribute to that effort.
Well, we do love food. Where did that come from for you?
Loving food.
Yes.
So what's funny is when I was a child in the former Soviet Union, I wasn't a tremendous fan of a lot of the foods that we ate. Now, I didn't know that it was like Russian food or Eastern European food. It was just food to me. There was no other, I'd never even heard of all these other places. So it's funny that I didn't really gain an appreciation for this type of food until I became a young adult. And it's really just like the nostalgia and having this food at every holiday meal and every gathering. At every family gathering, there would be certain things that were always, always on the menu, like absolutely without any question about it. Like mashed potatoes and pickled herring. That was a non-negotiable. Every meal has to have it that we gather as a family.
I am really glad you just mentioned two foods that I can not only pronounce but spell. So thank you for that one.
Sure.
It's a little different of a book. How did the concept come together and why was making it a memoir really important to you?
Yeah. Well, like I said, it started as a way to gather these recipes. And I began to work on that and I began to interview my family members to gather those recipes. The first two recipes that I collected was my grandmother's blinchiki, which is crepes recipe. And the second was my dad's borscht, which is a very popular Ukrainian soup with beets and cabbage and potatoes. And as I did that, I asked them a lot of questions about, where did you learn to cook? And how did you first start making this? And what's your favorite thing to cook? And as I did that, I realized I want to tell some stories. I want to talk about my relationship to having grown up in the former Soviet Union and then immigrating to the United States, to San Francisco, a gigantic culture shock, particularly in terms of the food. And that's what I wanted to kind of get out of me. It felt like the champagne topper in a champagne bottle. And I was like, if I could just get this set of stories out, I think there's going to be a lot more to come. So this is the the champagne cork hopefully going off.
And how's that working for you? Were you right?
At first, this is my first experience writing a book. I'm not really a long form writer. I'm a short form writer. And when I first finished, I was like, well, that's it. I'm never writing again. I guess that was everything I had to say. It's all over now. And it took a couple of weeks and a vacation And on vacation, I woke up early, everybody was still asleep, and the first thing that came to me was, elementary school, and just all of I had thought about I went to bed thinking about if I were to write a book about my life, but I had to change people's names because I don't wanna get in trouble. What would I name these characters in my elementary school? That's what I went to bed thinking, and I woke up with just like 20 different chapter ideas for stories from elementary school that have these like wacky titles like the Tactile Dome is a weird place for your first kiss, things like that. So it's there, it's in there. There's plenty more stories, and I'm excited to kind of keep going and see what wants to be told and in what format. Because writing is one option, but there are a lot of other mediums available to us as storytellers.
Before we start recording, you said something that you didn't really identify as a writer.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but wait, yes, you are. So I love, well, I know the answer because you told me, and
Yeah.
I'm like, no, stop, save it for the
Yeah.
air. But if not a writer, who are you?
Yes. It's such a good question. Um, you know, it's funny. I'm very envious of these people that, like in childhood, know what they're going to be and how they're going to be defined. I've always been very envious of that, and I've really tried a lot of different things. And then I realized all of the things that I've tried have a through line, and that through line is telling stories. And when I look back at, I'm a mom as well. I have two girls, and you sort of watch as these natural talents emerge, how they're just good at certain things or better at certain things or more drawn to certain things or get more joy out of certain things. And I looked back to see what were those things for me in childhood. And I grew up with my mom and dad being stage directors, theater directors in the former Soviet Union. So theater was kind of all around me. My mom's grandfather was also an actor. We kind of lived in a community of a lot of artists. And, I remember being like 4 or 5 years old and writing a play that I then, like, I made these little clay hedgehogs and I, puppeted them around. And I only wrote the first act and then I improvised the second, which I learned was a really bad idea. That's not it. So as you look at like what I was always doing, it was always telling stories. Even when I worked for, in the corporate world, I was telling stories. One of my jobs was to work for Google for the Google food program. And my job was to tell the story of the Google food program to the Googlers, why it exists, where they source their food, who are some of the, growers and all the, like why we choose the ingredients that we choose. That was my job.
Wow, that is so cool. I didn't even realize that was a job.
I know,
And
right?
right. And I am one of those people who, ever since I learned how to write or to tell stories, that I knew that this would be part of my future. The
Yes.
love of food and the obsession with food and the
Yes.
food writer and podcaster came many years later. I'm actually a former non cook.
Mm.
And then when I got an Instant Pot and realized that cooking can be easy, for me, it was life changing
Yeah.
because there's so many benefits in addition to, eating of
Yeah.
food. What do you think those are?
Yeah. That's a great question. It's funny to bring it back to the Google Food Program for a second, but one of the key things that we would educate or continue to educate both the Googlers and the public at large about was why the food program exists. And it's not just, here's a free lunch. It really was created for the purpose of sparking connection and conversation. The idea that if we're gathering around a table, we're sharing a meal, we're stepping away, from our desks and gathering, that there's a magic in that connection. And that's really when I started collecting these recipes for the book, that's when I realized, oh, what I'm really curious about is why do we eat the way that we do? Why do we celebrate the way that we do? My family, no joke, there's a calendar in there. We celebrate every single birthday, every single wedding anniversary, every single major American holiday, major Jewish holiday, and some former Soviet holidays together. So it's a lot of togetherness and a lot of food.
Do you have a favorite that you look forward to at every celebration?
Ooh. So for me, it's much more tied to the occasion. Like if it's a holiday, so an easy one is like Hanukkah and latkes, like, right? Like you gotta have latkes. Like, yay, you're looking forward to that specific thing, right? And so every holiday has sort of these expected traditions. New Year's, I would say New Year's is the biggest Soviet holiday there was because it was, they divorced it from religion, but people, we still needed a holiday. So we celebrated in the exact same way that Christmas is celebrated here in America. We celebrate New Year's in the former Soviet Union. So there's a tree, there's presents, he's not called Santa Claus, he's called Grandpa Frost, like the whole thing. And the food that's served at New Year's, there's like specific things that must happen or it doesn't count, you know. Mashed potatoes and herring, I already mentioned, but there's a couple of really popular things, like very popular Russian Soviet salad is called salat olivier, which is basically potato salad, but it comes with, meat. You also put meat in it. It's a fun one. A lot of people have a lot of different variations of it, but salat olivier, like your New Year's, you can't have a New Year's celebration without it. That's an example of one.
And is there a recipe that you love that you want to share? Because I don't think it's nice to make people hungry without giving them
I
like an
know.
activity.
I know. I'm going to give you the easiest one because I'm not that great of a cook, and I make my husband do almost all the cooking because he's a really good cook. I'm a really good sous chef. Like, I'll chop the things, I'll peel the things, I'll go to the store and buy the things, but like, please don't make me like actually fry the things because I'm gonna just mess it up. But the one thing that's like easy enough to share and to do, and by the way, none of the recipes in my book are tested or vetted in any way. We tried our best, but you try getting your grandmother to give you her secret recipe. You see what you come up with when you do that. So my mother-in-law shared this recipe with me. They're called Sirniki. Do you want to try that, Deborah?
I don't.
No, not even a
Oh,
Sirniki.
Sirniki.
Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, so what it really basically is fried cheese. And that's a hit in the house, especially the kids. It comes with apples, zucchini. You grate these things and you use farmer's cheese or cottage cheese, but farmer's cheese is best. Some flour, some eggs, some baking soda, salt and vanilla. Sugar is optional, but we usually put sugar in it. Sometimes people put raisins in it as well. So you grate these things together, you mix it up, you fry them, and they become these little very fragrant, like delicious little balls of fried cheesy dough.
I really like that because I think fried cheese and we think, mozzarella sticks.
Yeah, this is sweet.
But this is like sweet and you can like sneak in vegetables.
You can sneak in some vegetables. Yes. The pro tip that again, not tested, but once I wrote the book, I started baking some of the recipes. Pro tip is to peel the outer layer of the zucchini. So because if you don't do that, then they'll know it's in there and it'll be like kind of a tougher texture. So take that off and then just very finely grate these things and you can sneak that in.
Okay. Well, I love making things like mushroom burgers and zucchini
Mhm.
patties and carrot patties. I like the idea of shredding it and kind of mixing it in.
Yeah.
And I love my air fryer, so I could totally make it in there too.
Yes, I think we'll actually try it. Try it in the air fryer. Tell me what you think. But this is like a weekend breakfast. It's like a special. It takes a little bit more time, bit of a special occasion, but not so much time. It's like whipping up pancakes on a weekend, but sort of the post-Soviet version of that is Sirniki.
And is there a significance behind that as well, or it's just yummy?
It's just yummy. I don't really remember my family making this a lot as I was growing up. And so I feel like I was introduced to this more of a staple once I met my husband and his mom. I got so lucky and so spoiled. My parents are incredible cooks. My dad, like, he missed his calling. He should have been a chef. And Stan's mom, my husband's mom, is a really great cook too. And she bakes as well. And my mom bakes. So, like, honestly, we're so spoiled. And some of her favorite things, or some of the things that I really enjoy that she makes are the Sirniki. I also tried with the recipes that I included in the book, you don't want to you want to make sure everyone's included. So I wanted to include recipes that were from my family, my dad, my grandmother, and my mother-in-law. So to kind of keep all that together.
So it's basically a family project that everybody can enjoy.
I hope so. Yeah.
Is there a message that you want everybody to get from the book?
For me, part of this process of writing this book, and I mentioned this in the introduction, when I had this idea, collect some recipes, then the pandemic hit. And all of a sudden, our life, how we normally did things, was interrupted. And all of those special occasions that we would gather for stopped. And we're in San Francisco, and our COVID policies were very strict, and we followed ours like to the T. So we didn't gather, we didn't see each other. And it made me really take that opportunity to wonder, well, I was brought up with this set of values and this one way of doing things. And now, what do I want to carry forward into the next generation? So that's what this has been about for me, is looking at the values that I was raised with and that came from the former Soviet Union. And what do we want to carry forward in this country and with the next generation? I think one of the biggest, most positive values is the commitment to being with your family and to really spending that time together. Now, we don't always enjoy each other's company. There's drama, there's fights, there's tears, it's a family, for crying out loud, but you commit to being together. And when you spend that time together over and over and over again, you really do instill that into your children and into one another. And you sort of feel like these are going to be the people that can pick you up if you've fallen down. They'll be there for you. And the other value that you cannot get away from is hospitality. Just this idea that, like, anytime that I go to my family's house or that anybody comes to my house, hospitality is just baked into everything that we do. We will always offer you a beverage, make you a snack, make you something special. When my parents procure a special ingredient, or when they learn to cook something new, which they're still doing. My dad just took a class on how to make Peking duck. And once he did it at home, he made Peking duck. He invited everybody. He's not just, it's not like now I know how to make Peking duck all for me. Like, the idea is that, like, we want to share that bounty with everybody that we love. Make it a special occasion.
I love that.
I know.
This has been such a joy. Do you have any final food for thought that you want to leave people with?
I would say asking your family, your chosen family or your family by blood, taking the time to sit down with them and ask them to tell you about their favorite food, their favorite thing that they make. Who taught it to them? How did they learn it? Just spending that little bit of time with them, because sometimes the older generations, they don't want to tell you about their life. They're very secretive about things. But when you can use this as a bridge to really get to know them and connect with them, you won't regret it. I'm so grateful that I captured, some video, some photo, some stories that my grandmother shared with me, that my dad shared with me. I'll always have that, and I'll always treasure it. And I hope that people get that idea for their family as well.
It is a gift for you, it's a gift for your family, and it's a gift for the future.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining me today. Where can people learn more about you and your book?
Yeah. Thank you so much for asking that. So the book is called Until the Last Pickle. They can just search for me, Yuliya Patsay. And then I also would really love for people to connect with me by signing up for my Substack, which is Buckle Up Boobala.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yuliya Patsay, for joining me. Thank you for tuning in to Taste Buds with Deb. Don't miss an episode. You can subscribe on YouTube, iTunes, and or your favorite podcast platform. And if you go to jewishjournal.com/podcast, you can read the articles and get the recipes that go with each episode. I'm not going to try pronouncing it again, but I am very excited to try the
Fried cheese.
And you can learn more at tastebudswithdeb.com. Until next time, bon appetit.